The study of consumer behavior builds on an understanding of human behavior in general. In their efforts to understand why and how consumers make buying decisions, marketers borrow extensively from the sciences of psychology and sociology. In this chapter, we will focus on individual purchasing behavior, including the personal and interpersonal determinants of consumer behavior. Consumer behavior is the process through which the ultimate buyers make purchase decisions. Consumer behavior is a function of the interactions of interpersonal influences, such as culture, friends, classmates, co-workers, and relatives, and personal factors, such as attitudes, learning, and perception. Cultural influence is the interpersonal determinants of consumer behavior. Subcultures are groups with their own distinct modes of behavior. Cultures are not homogeneous entities with universal values, but include numerous subcultures. Understanding the differences among subcultures can help marketers develop more effective marketing strategies. Cultural differences are particularly important for international marketers, as marketing strategies that prove successful in one country often cannot be successfully extended to other international markets because of cultural variations. The value structures and the standards of reference groups influence a person's behavior. Consumers usually try to coordinate their purchase behavior with the perceptions of the values of their reference groups. The influence of a reference group on a member's purchase decision requires two conditions. 1. The purchased product must be one that others can see and identify. 2. The purchased item must be conspicuous. It must stand out as something unusual, a brand or product that not everyone owns. The value structures and the standards of reference groups influence a person's behavior. Consumers usually try to coordinate their purchase behavior with the perceptions of the values of their reference groups. The influence of a reference group on a member's purchase decision requires two conditions. 1. The purchased product must be one that others can see and identify. 2. The purchased item must be conspicuous. It must stand out as something unusual, a brand or product that not everyone owns. Slide 5. Class rankings in a society are usually determined by occupation, income, education, family background, and residence location. Consumers can be identified as 6 classes within the social structures: the upper, lower middle, lower middle classes, followed by working class and lower class. Opinion leaders are trendsetters who purchase new products before others in a group and then influence others in their purchases. In every reference group, a few members act as opinion leaders. Opinion leaders are important for marketers, as they are the first people to buy new products and share their experiences and opinions via word of mouth. The purchase decisions of the other members of the reference groups are influenced by the reports of the opinion leaders. Marketers define the role of each spouse of terms in 4 categories. Autonomic role is seen when the partners independently make equal numbers of purchase decisions. Purchases of personal care products fall into this category. Husband-dominant role occurs when the husband usually makes certain purchase decisions. Purchase of a generator or wood stove most often fall into this category. Wife-dominant role has the wife making most of certain buying decisions. Children's clothing is a typical wife-dominant purchase. Syncretic role refers to joint decisions by spouses. The purchase of a house follows a syncretic pattern. A need is an imbalance between the consumer's actual and desired states. A motive is an interstate that directs a person toward the goal of satisfying a need. A person who recognizes or feels a significant or urgent need then seeks to correct the imbalance. Marketers attempt to arouse this sense of urgency by making a need felt, and then influencing consumers' motivation to satisfy their needs by purchasing specific products. Psychologist Abraham H. Maslow developed a theory that characterized needs and arranged them into a hierarchy. He identified 5 levels of needs, beginning with physiological needs and progressing to the need for self-actualization. Once the physiological needs are met, the individual moves on to pursue satisfaction of higher-order needs. Consumers periodically are motivated by the need to relieve thirst and hunger, but their interests soon return to focus on satisfaction of safety, social, and other needs of the hierarchy. But people may not always progress through the hierarchy. They may fixate on a certain level. For example, consumers who live through an economic downturn may always be motivated to save money in order to avoid financial insecurity, a second-level need. Marketers who understand this can create opportunities for their firms by offering money-saving goods and services. Perception is the meaning that a person attributes to incoming stimuli gathered through the five senses of sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. A person's perception of an object or event results from the interaction of two types of factors. 1. Stimulus factors, such as characteristics of the physical object such as size, color, weight, and shape. And 2. Individual factors, like unique characteristics of the individual, including not only sensory processes but also experiences with similar inputs and basic motivations and expectations. An attitude has cognitive, affective, and behavioral components. The cognitive component refers to the individual's information and knowledge about an object or concept. The affective component deals with feelings or emotional reactions. The behavioral component involves tendencies to act in a certain manner. Marketers can attempt to change consumer attitudes by attempting to produce consumer attitudes that will lead to the purchase of an existing product, or by evaluating existing consumer attitudes and creating or modifying products to appeal to these attitudes. Learning in a marketing context refers to immediate or expected changes in consumer behavior as a result of experience. The learning process includes the component of drive, which is any strong stimulus that impels action. Fear, pride, greed, jealousy, hunger, thirst, comfort, and rivalry are examples of drives. Learning also relies on a cue, any object or signal in the environment that determines the nature of the consumer's response to a drive. A response is the individual's reaction to a set of cues and drives. Marketers must find a way to develop a desired outcome, such as repeat purchase behavior gradually over time. Shaping is the process of applying a series of rewards and reinforcements to permit more complex behavior to evolve. Self-concept is a person's multifaceted picture of himself or herself and has following four components. 1. The real self. It is an objective view of the total person. 2. The self-image. It is the way an individual views himself or herself. 3. The looking-glass self. It is the way an individual thinks others see him or her. 4. The ideal self. This serves as a personal set of objectives because it is the image to which the individual aspires. When making purchase decisions, consumers will more likely choose products that move them closer to their ideal self-images. Marketers can use this knowledge to convince consumers that buying certain products will move them closer to their ideal self-images. There are steps involved in the consumer decision process. Problem recognition is the first stage in the decision-making process, during which the consumer becomes aware of a gap between the existing situation and a desired situation. During the search stage, the consumer gathers information about the attainment of a desired state. The third step in the consumer decision process is to evaluate the evoked set of options. The outcome of the evaluation, the search and alternative evaluation stages of the decision process result in the purchase decision and the actual purchase. The buyer feels either satisfaction at the removal of the discrepancy between the existing and desired states or dissatisfaction with the purchase. Marketers recognize three categories of problem-solving behavior. 1. Consumers make many purchases routinely by choosing a preferred brand or one of a limited group of acceptable brands. 2. Limited problem solving is usually seen in situations when the consumer already has set evaluative criteria for a particular kind of purchase, but then encounters a new, unknown brand. 3. Extended problem solving results when brands are difficult to categorize or evaluate. The consumer needs to understand the product features before evaluating alternatives. In order to successfully sell their goods and keep customers happy, marketers need to know if their product or service will tend to require only limited time, little searching, and minimal shopping effort, or whether a more thorough investigation and comparison will often be needed. From this chapter, we learn that marketers who plan to succeed with today's consumers need to understand how their potential market behaves. Marketers constantly work toward changing or modifying components of consumers' attitudes about their products to gain a favorable attitude and purchase decision. Marketers also refine their understanding of the consumer decision process and use their knowledge to design effective marketing strategies.